Welcome to the CFB SuperShow live before lock Q&A edition, brought to you by the FTN Network. I'm your host, Walter Waddell, aka Dub Deuces 85, the niche sports connoisseur, pulling double duty each and every Saturday. We are just about a month into the college basketball season already. It's feast week. Let's go. And week 13 of the college football season, just about 3 weeks left. Then we have conference championships. Then we have Army, Navy. Of course, that'll be before the conference championships. Then it's bowl season and the expanded playoff field. Plenty of football left. Have no fear. And we are doing our thing. College basketball slate this morning, just locked 3 minutes ago. Doing our thing in the Discord. We are 57 minutes out from the week 13 main slate lock. If you're new here to the show, please make sure that you help me out. Drop a like on this link if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitter/X, a like and retweet/repost there helps. All of those interactions go a long way for me and FTN. And if you're a regular of the show, you know what to do. Make sure you give us lots and lots of love. So this is your show as much as it is mine. On Saturday mornings, we are going to be answering any and all questions that you have. Betting stuff, props, prize picks, underdogs. We're going to focus primarily on the main slate here, but if you have some night slate questions, we can get those answered as well. I'm going to go over some ownership stuff, rehash a little bit of what the core's looking like, strategy, any news that's relevant and dropping as we speak. And then we'll get out of here with a few minutes to spare so we can finalize all of our lineups and try not to get caught watching the LaSalle game too much here as we go. All right, so let's start off with some ownership, shall we? Let's do that. So those of you who have been watching all season know we like to pull it up. We typically give a top 5 or the top 5 highest owned players at each position. We do this with our own, predictions for ownership. We also pull an aggregate from other places as well and try to come up with an idea of where all that's going to come from. So starting with the quarterback position, Garrett Green coming in as the one of, if not the highest owned player on the slate and the highest owned quarterback. Put up 44 last week as a really intriguing matchup. The West Virginia versus UCF game. It's prime stack territory, should be high scoring shootout. If it, is a 20-17 type game, a lot of people, including myself, are going to be livid. This game is the game of the week for us and everybody else in the industry. Baron Morton coming in as the second highest owned projected quarterback for Texas Tech. He's only priced there at 6.5. Texas Tech has got a great matchup against Oklahoma State. We know we love Taj Brooks, but they can also be passed on. Morton is throwing 40-plus passes. The accuracy hasn't been there, but the volume is, and he's going to be capable of putting up a 25, maybe even 30 fantasy point score here if things break right, and only priced at 6.5. Jalen Daniels for Kansas. That is the one that's not a surprise per se. He is priced at 6.9, definitely doable there going up against Colorado. Colorado trying to solidify their place in the Big 12 title game, so they need to win this. Kansas may be playing the role of spoiler. Then we have DJ Lagway, cheap, only 5K. The hamstring issues aren't gone. They're not going away yet. So definitely impacted his running ability right now. And he's taking some sacks, but he definitely is going to have to throw a lot here in this game against Ole Miss. So don't mind that play whatsoever. And then Cam Ward, 10.5K. If you're playing Cam Ward, you're not getting as many of the premium running backs we want, but I always love Cam Ward. He's going to throw for 350 and 4 touchdowns today by far. Easy. If you can fit him, you definitely do so. I'll be betting his props like I do every Miami slate, but always love Cam Ward. So that's the quarterback chalk. Surprised that Dylan Risk isn't projecting higher. My favorite quarterback is Garrett Green, but the way I'm building, it's putting me towards Dylan Risk, and he's only 6K facing a West Virginia defense that's very beatable. So that is where I'm looking. At running back, no surprise, Taj Brooks, very highly owned. He's got the DVP elite DVP against Oklahoma State. Can't stop anybody on the ground defensively at all. I'm expecting a huge game for him, 30-plus touches. Jaheim White, West Virginia running back, priced at 4.6, seeing some pretty big ownership there. Now, we've been talking all season about how we like to pair quarterbacks and running backs. That works a lot in college football, but this is not one of those times where I would want to do so. And I know White is cheap and allows you to fit some other pieces, but he loses touches and touchdowns to Garrett Green now that he's back. And, of course, C.J. Donaldson still pilfering looks too. That's not a pairing situation. It's an either or. If you're in my opinion, if you're rostering Green, I don't think you want to look to White. If you are fading Green and you want to get to White, then you play him and you hope he gets all of the touchdowns. So I want to be clear about that. Rashad Smith of SMU, great matchup against Virginia, coming off a big game. Then we have Isaiah Augustov from Colorado, priced at just 4-1. Can't get to that Colorado passing game. You want some of the rushing attack there. Colorado hasn't been big in their running backs room very much this season, or going to it very often, but I do think this is a good situation for him. I didn't start out looking to roster him, but he is finding his way up towards my main because I have about 4-1, 4-2 left for a last spot, and there you go. And then lastly, what did I have here? Marion Hampton, North Carolina. Expensive, one of the 3 premium running backs that we talked about at length on Thursday. Volume against BC, potentially a wet one. Porous weather. Watch out for Marion Hampton. And then wide receivers, we have the following as your chalk wide receivers. Josh Kelly of Texas Tech. Makes sense because of that Texas Tech stack that's brewing. Jordan Tyson of ASU. He has had 2 really big games, but he's been productive in the last 3 or 4. Levitt's really starting to find him. Only priced at 6.5. He is an 8K receiver at this point, so you're getting a massive discount. Roddy Daniels at 4.4. Love Roddy Daniels. Hudson had a big game last week, and you'll see Keyshawn do some things, but we like Roddy because he does get carries as well. He's kind of like the poor man's version of Savion Williams, and it's a big discount for us, which we need. Cole Taylor of West Virginia. Very cheap tight end. Garrett Green loves him. That's his kind of safety valve. He's priced at only 3.8. We knew one of Cole Taylor, Hudson Clement, Justin Robinson would be popular, and I figured it'd be Cole Taylor. Then it's Hudson Clement, and then very minuscule ownership on Justin Robinson, who I, of course, love and has very high upside. And then Caleb Douglas, so another Texas Tech receiver. Caleb Douglas priced there at 5K. We're probably going to see a lot of triple stacks or even quad stacks of Texas Tech throughout today. And then you have my man Sam Brown, who is just right on the cusp there. We had him at 2 or 3% a couple of weeks ago. He's so cheap at 3.7. He had 6 targets. We talked about it. People are figuring this out. It's a great matchup against Wake Forest. Ward's going to be slinging it. He definitely spreads it around. Brown's going to have opportunity here to score a touchdown and pay off in a big, big way. So Sam Brown, that's your chalk right there for the DraftKings slate. Hey, what is up? What is up? What is up? My man T9X78. Appreciate you always stopping by. And then Milton, I'm trying to jam in Hampton and Taj Brooks. Need another super cheap, viable wide receiver besides Sam Brown. Well, you are in luck because we have some of those fresh out of the oven. Let's talk about it. This is a good segue. So we just mentioned Brown, talked a little bit about the West Virginia situation. So we want all the exposure to that game that we can get, whether that's Green and risk with some of his receivers, the running game, however you want to do it, you want exposure here. You have options on both sides. Cole Taylor, who we just mentioned there for West Virginia, the safe option at 3.8K. He's going to get 4 to 6 targets pretty easily. Green really relies on him heavily. Looking at that game last week, and it's important to note Traylon Ray is gone, so the second highest targets on the team, Traylon Ray, is out for the season due to injury. So Taylor, 9 targets against Baylor last week, 5 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown. Most weeks you're going to be able to rely on 4 to 5 catches from him, 50 yards, touchdown, variance that'll come and go, but that is one option there. I personally like Justin Robinson a lot. I don't think anybody will really be on him. I do have a tendency to get a little cute, besides my boyish good looks here, with some certain plays where I play them and maybe I didn't necessarily have to. So Cole Taylor is the safest option, but you know me, I'm not one to be safe. Robinson is only 300 cheaper at 3.5, but it fits my lineup a little bit better. And I think that I know he has big play threat ability, similar to Hudson Clement. So he doesn't necessarily, slide into the Traylon Ray role, but he will get targets. He will be out there in some additional receiver sets, and he is a very big time prospect. The staff loves him. They've been talking about how he's been stepping up the last couple of weeks. He, of course, transferred in from the SEC. He is a big time weapon if they choose to use him, and I think that Green will. 7 targets against Baylor. He only reeled in 2 of them for 36 yards. But 3 of them were on deep shots, and they connect on just 1, and he breaks a long touchdown, which he has done earlier this season. He had a 60-yard touchdown against Cincinnati just a couple of weeks ago. The kid's the real deal. So that's another cheap option for you on the West Virginia side. Now, on the UCF side, we have Randy Pittman, who is not projecting to be very highly owned. That doesn't shock me, but it's another tight end play. Pittman has absolutely thrived with risk the last couple of weeks. Pittman was kind of just, an afterthought with Ja'Cory Brown and KJ Jefferson. They didn't throw the ball particularly well. Now they are with risk. Against BYU, he was targeted 5 times there when they transitioned to risk. And then the 2 starts with Dylan Risk, 6 targets against Arizona, 5 catches for 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then Arizona State caught all 4 of his targets for 62 yards. So you're getting a really good discount there on a player that is, again, sort of like Cole Taylor acting as a safety valve there for Dylan Risk. And he's doing in the last 2 games, they've really simplified things for him. He's thrown a lot of, short yardage stuff and easy high percentage throws. And that's where Pittman comes in there at 3.7K. You also have, I was going to say maybe some Javarius Johnson love there, but no, your other 2 options there at UCF are above 5K. So it's probably not going to work for you. 5.1 Kobe Hudson, who's okay, was the WR1 for a long time, and then Jacoby Jones, who has really thrived as well with Dylan Risk, but he's 5.3K. And I already know if you're looking at the build I'm looking at, you're not going to have the salary for that option. So that game is where you can definitely look for some cheapies. Pittsburgh versus Louisville, Sincere Lee on Pittsburgh being out for the rest of the season. And it does sound like Eli Holstein, he was cleared. I think we'll probably end up seeing him. So that helps. You do have Poppy Williams at 4.2K, probably your best look there. And then you also have Kenny Johnson at 4.4. So a couple of sub 5K options that you can look to there. I did see some love for John Koppenheimer. He's 3.5, another tight end there with Nesbitt out. He's getting all of that, but I just think this is going to be a game where both teams try to control the possessions and run the football a lot. So it's basically a Hampton versus Robichaux type matchup. And then over on SMU, we mentioned Roddy Daniels, who we love, 4.4. You could also look to Jordan Hudson at 4.6, and then Keyshawn Smith at 4.5. I wouldn't go down to any of the others like Moochie Dixon at 4K. I would rather just be one of Hudson, Smith, Daniels. Daniels is going to be really popular, but he is the best overall option coming out of SMU there for me, and I think the rest of the industry. So there's the cheapies you need, Milton. Make it work. Make it happen. You also have Ulysses Bentley as a cheap running back that Jake really likes. And then, of course, you have the industry chalk favorite, Auguste from Colorado, which I wasn't set to play, but it looks like I am going to use him now. Jamie asks, are you looking to use Auguste over Bentley or playing both? So I'm not playing both. The reason why, I'm getting the question as every week, is it 2 quarterbacks this week? Is it 4 running backs? I am playing 4 running backs back to our original stuff, back to our core here. So I'm playing 4 running backs, and those are valuable spots. Later in the season, running backs are so valuable, and they're just, how important they've been in college football DFS. And it's taken people a little bit to catch on. They've really been, we've cashed a lot when we probably didn't have any business cashing because of an explosion game from a running back in the Superflex. I think that the firepower at running back requires us to pay up. And playing both Augustave and Bentley, it doesn't give me the kind of upside that I'm looking for. And the floor could bottom out too. If Augustave doesn't score, he only gets like 5 to 10 carries, doesn't get the workload that maybe we're hoping for, that could bottom out. Bentley, there's still, Dom Thomas around. Perhaps they throw the ball a million times. So both are good plays. I'm not saying they're not, but playing them together just feels a little bit too lean for me. I want to do everything I can to play 3 of this 4, which is Taj Brooks, right? I've been talking about him at length. RJ Harvey, who's going to be the lower owned of the 4, I should say. Omarion Hampton, who's going to be the most popular. And then, guys like Desmond Reed, Rashad Smith, Ollie Gordon, Devin Neal. Those are all great options too. I want to play 3 out of those 6 running backs. And in order to fit Hampton, Harvey, and Brooks, which is where my lean is, I have to get cheap at wide receiver, which I'm very comfortable with this week. And I can't play Bentley with Augustave. It's not a bad build. If you wanted to pay up at wide receiver, like say you wanted to do Bentley, Augustave, Hampton, and Brooks, then you could try to pay up in the 5, 6K. Maybe you get to Tyson there with a build like that. So there's some variations you can do there. If you're doing alternate builds, MME stuff, I would certainly get Tyler Warren in one. I would certainly do a Dylan Riss, Garrett Green stack. I would rotate through the receivers in the UCF West Virginia game, get Tyson, various things like that for sure. But as it stands right now, my mission for Week 13's main slate is to play 3 of those 6 premium backs. And I'm pretty crystal clear about who those 3 are going to be: Hampton, Harvey, and Brooks. Hampton and Brooks projecting as pretty big chalk, no surprise, but Harvey not as much because people just can't get there without making sacrifices that they're not comfortable doing. But I am. All right, Mr. Don. What games do you like this weekend? I'll hit you with some bets here. And then Tony asking any totals today. Yeah, so we'll transition over to some betting things here. The lines may have moved slightly, but let me pull up the tracker and the bets that we entered on Tuesday and yesterday, so you can have an idea. All right. So I have Arkansas State -3 versus Louisiana Monroe. Also had Florida Atlantic +3 versus Charlotte as a home dog. That was at +2.5. Double check here to see what that is now. And then Duke +3 versus Virginia Tech, and North Texas -2.5 versus ECU. Those are the 4 spread bets that I really like. As far as totals go, let's take a look at the most updated lines here. We'll go ahead and utilize DraftKings. So there's one sticking out, the 41 total between Iowa and Maryland. Billy Edwards, thinking about SMU's BJ Edwards. Billy Edwards is questionable, dinged up, not great, not healthy. It's going to be a struggle. I do like the under 41 there. I think Caleb Johnson and Iowa's just going to run the football down their throat. So under 41 there between Iowa and Maryland. Maybe get some alt totals there, push it up to 45, something like that. The North Carolina Boston College game, even with any kind of weather patterns, I do like the over 50.5 there. Both offenses should be able to move the ball fairly effectively. It's just about finishing those drives with actual touchdown scores. And then one more that we really liked here. Just want to make sure it hasn't changed too much. Yeah, Arkansas State's still -3, by the way, and Florida Atlantic +3. So you get that +3 if you want it versus Charlotte. Both teams between Charlotte and Florida Atlantic relieve their coaches. So it's interim coaches, associate head coaches in there. But at the end of the day, Florida Atlantic at home, Charlotte's a mess. Got to like them to be able to do enough there on their home field. The North Texas ECU total 74, by the way. Too bad that one wasn't on a slate. Not touching that total, but that's a fun one, right? Okay, this one. This was the one that at the beginning of the week I thought it seemed low. Arkansas playing Louisiana Tech this week. The total is 48.5. Both offenses have some pop to them. Defensive wise, wouldn't expect Louisiana Tech to put up much of a fight at all, but they do have the offense to at least score 20 to 27 points legitimately. So that should put us way over that 48.5. That is my favorite total on the slate. Louisiana Tech versus Arkansas over 48.5. All right, switching back over to DFS, Steve asks, who has a higher ceiling, Sam Brown or Pittman Jr.? So the answer to that is Sam Brown. Reason being, he's on a pass-heavy offense in a situation where Wake Forest, the defense they're facing, very little chance to slow them down. Miami's had a bye to kind of absorb and think about that terrible loss to Georgia Tech. They've been messing around, playing on borrowed time here with their slow first half starts. I think they come out firing here early and often in the first half, establish a lead, and into the third quarter and let Cam Ward try to work his way back in. He's going to be at the ceremony for the Heisman. Right now it's Travis Hunter as the winner, but a big game, 404 type game from Cam Ward would put him back into second. And they're going to throw it a lot. Sam Brown had the 6 targets last week. He hasn't had less than 4 since early in the season, I believe week 3 or 4. So we can count on 4 targets there. You see that game against Louisville, 3 for 125 and a touchdown, broke a 59-yarder, breaks 150-plus yards, which he certainly can. I had a 76-yard touchdown against South Florida back in week 4. I mean, this is a dude with a ton of upside here. Not a lot of volume, so he has to be quality with those targets. But the reason why last week he had the 6 and only caught 3 is because one of them sailed over his head, and then he had 2 crucial drops, which I talked about at length on Thursday. But you're going to see 2, possibly 3 long shots at Brown in this game. We really just need him to connect with the 1. But if he got 2, that would be a huge win for us and the community. Pittman, definitely like him. Probably more safe because less competition for targets, right? Acts as the primary safety valve for risk. He's just not going to necessarily blow it up. He did have the 25 against Arizona because he scored twice, but you look at his actual yardage on a game-to-game basis, he's going to have to score those touchdowns to really hit that ceiling. More often than not, we're going to get like a 3 for 30 with him, which at 3.7, we'll take any points we can get, but Brown definitely has the higher upside there. Even in a crowded receiver room at Miami. Keep them coming. Keep flying. Keep them flowing. Let's see. On FanDuel, Micah Bernard or Elijah Surratt. I would say Bernard. I like Bernard on DraftKings as well. And then he asked, any lean if Brown plays for Louisville? So we'll get into some new stuff here. It does sound like he's going to give it a shot. We obviously have more time here. My thought on Brown playing is that he will. It's a worst case scenario, though, because I don't know how effective he's actually going to be. So basically what that does is muddies the water. Or Isaac Brown, not Isaiah Brown. Got basketball at the same time, getting names mixed up. Sorry. Anyways, I think what happens is he gets some carries, they try to feel it out, see how he is, but it's not going to be a game in which he gets high volume, but it'll be enough to kind of take Duke Watson out of main team consideration. Because I know a lot of people are asking about using Duke Watson at 6K. Primary benefactor last week when Brown went down, 11 carries for 117 yards, scored 3 damn times against Stanford. So I get why people would want to use him. I'm uncomfortable as hell with the 6K price point. Being that it's the last game on the slate, you're going to have a swap ready to go, some extra salary or 2 players. And if we don't get that news, it's just going to be really rough. To me, I don't think it's a situation even worth getting involved in. We have such premium running backs on the slate that I don't want to miss out on a big game from one of them in the chances that Isaac Brown plays and gets full run. I actually have a real sour feeling about Pittsburgh-Louisville being a bit of a lackluster game. Both teams have some injuries on both sides. I don't know. I have a really odd feeling about this one, but at this point, I do think Brown plays, but on a limited basis, which is obviously the worst case scenario if you plan on playing Watson. All right. Will Shepard or Daniel Jackson? Shepard 2 weeks ago, we had him at super low rostership. God, he's been so good. Should have went back to him last week. Didn't. He had an even better game there. the defense paying so much attention to Travis Hunter. Shepard, he was one of the best receivers at Vanderbilt over the last few years. They've really got a good connection between him and Sanders, and he's just really been working out. LeJontay Weister, of course. Horn supposedly back, but I'm not worried about that. For me, it would be Shepard. I'm not trying to target against Penn State too often. Jackson's price of 5.6 is appealing. We know what he can do. 4 straight games, over 12 fantasy points. Had that huge game against Maryland, and even a tougher spot on the road against Illinois. He had 13. On the road against Rutgers, he had 14. So he continues to produce, but I don't know that I can get there against Penn State. Theoretically, they're going to have to throw a lot, so he may get there on volume alone. But for me, I would lean Will Shepard for a 3rd straight week there if you were going to get to him. This Duff says, got all 3 running backs in one lineup. Boom or bust, baby. Yeah, it doesn't look that bad. I know that you're probably thinking like, geez, what could you possibly have if you're going to play Hampton, Harvey, and Brooks? You're really making some sacrifices, and I am. We're sacrificing Jordan Tyson in that type of lineup. We're sacrificing Tyler Warren, right? Like we're Josh Kelly. We're really missing out on some premium wide receivers. And last week was the week for me to pay up for a receiver with Ja'Cory Brooks and Tyler Warren for that matter, and it worked out just fine. But the running back pool wasn't this elite the last 2 slates, last 2 main slates, I should say. And we are sacrificing some things. Garrett Green, he's going to be very highly owned, and we've seen Green in these spots before. God forbid an injury or some underperformances. Not saying that's going to happen, but he's hurt me. He's hurt my heart in this spot before. But yeah, we are definitely missing out. And this lineup could bottom out if Harvey doesn't find the end zone, only rushes for 80 yards. It's over, right? If Hampton rushes for 100 yards only, no scores, it's over. If Brooks doesn't find the end zone, only 90 yards, there's risk. But the nice thing is their ceilings are massive today. When I look at the other options on the slate here and the price, I think that those 3 capable of providing us with a slate shattering performances. And if all 3 do on your lineup and they put up 35 plus each, you're just going to be so far in the driver's seat. As long as risk doesn't throw a Giovanni McCoy special at you like -1 or something like that, you're going to be just fine. And I think that it's much easier to stop. There we go. It's much easier to pay down for a receiver than it is to pay down at running back sometimes, because you can take those shots with the receivers. Lower running backs that aren't getting, there's usually not guys down there getting the volume. I know there's Bentley, but there's some risk there. I know Augustave is there, but you're rarely getting that type of play where you can feel confident. With the cheap receivers, it just makes your lineup flow better. I'd rather pay up for a running back at the end of the day. And we've got some guys getting targets here that are deep play threats. So Robinson, Brown, both capable of, hitting a home run today, a big long touchdown. And Roddy Daniels, of course, as our Savion Williams light. So that's the way we're doing it. The lineup is really not that bad, man. It's really not that bad. And if you wanted to switch out one of the Brooks or Harvey, I know a lot of people are kind of shying away from Harvey if they're going to go risk. Then, you've got Desmond Reed, who's probably going to have a huge PPR day. You've got Rashad Smith, who's rushing against a Virginia team that's essentially done. Hell, you've got Ollie Gordon in a great spot against Texas Tech that nobody's going to roster. Ollie Gordon, like a vintage Ollie Gordon performance at sub 5%. Hell yeah. Devin Neal, Mr. Touchdowns. There's just so many good options here. I just can't imagine not paying up for running back this week. It feels horrible. Horrible. Milton says, Kai Robichaud, 5,600 seems tasty. Definitely. He's actually pulling a decent chunk of ownership. Let me see where I have him. Yeah. She's between 18 and 22% roughly. he's definitely, the switch to Grayson James, better for everyone. So there's not the threat of a rushing quarterback like Castellanos taking from him. I don't know what the deal with Treshaun Ward is, basically phased out. And then you have the backup who was the RB4 to start the year, Jordan McDonald, but now he's like snaked into the RB2 spot. But Robichaux, and even if Turbo Richard isn't back, he's been missed, the last 3 or 4 games. Like Robichaux is just guaranteed at this point 20 plus touches, only 5'6". This feels like the Tawi Walker spot from like mid-season where his price didn't go up more than the mid 5s, maybe low 6s. It wasn't like the best YPC in the world, but just the volume was there and he ended up scoring a bunch. And Robichaux has scored 6 touchdowns in the last 4 games. So he's definitely in the pool there. If you want to go with him instead of a third premium high price running back, that would enable you to get to Garrett Green perhaps, or Tyson, Tyler, one of those plays. Like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And that's definitely one that I consider, like a Robichaux over RJ Harvey. But at the end of the day, I'm just married to the 3 premium running backs. But yes, Robichaux is a very good play. And I never thought that he would be this year, but Boston College it's been a weird season for them. And Robichaux's volume will be there at the very least. Appreciate you, Jamie. Says thanks for the content. Yeah, pulling double duty. We're watching some LaSalle. We got the preseason or early season tournament action going on. LaSalle and Stetson in the low 30s already with 4 minutes left in the first half. That one's turning into a great one. We have a stack of that. Plenty of games left. There's a 3-game college basketball slate later today. We'll have a projection sheet for that. And then, of course, we have the night slate college football content coming out from our man Jake. Let's talk about the night slate for a minute. You guys can keep throwing your questions out there, but let's talk about that right quick. Oh, Eli Holstein confirmed as a starter for Pittsburgh, by the way. So Holstein is in and will be starting, just so that we know. I kind of figured made that prediction was something that made the most sense if he's going to dress and be ready to go, that they were going to use him. All right. So the big one there on the night slate is Ashton Genty, right? He's 13.9K. And right away you might be saying, oh my God, how can we fit him in there? I don't want to make all these sacrifices. What can I do? You're going to have to play Ashton Genty. I haven't faded him any slate that Boise State's been on this year. And it's usually like those auxiliary secondary slates, the late nights, whatever. I have not faded him, and he hasn't been faded by many. Last week was the first time that Genty was under 50% on a slate this year. The night slate has brutal pricing, very soft. Outside of Genty and maybe like, I don't know, Bryson Daly, Riley Leonard, Sawyer Robinson, like outside of those guys, everybody is really underpriced. So you can easily get to Genty if you play the right value. And Marcel Reed of Texas A&M at 6K, like, yes, please. Amari Daniels at 3.5. Like, we saw Emmitt Smith Jr. get some work last week against New Mexico State, and Daniels just had the 5 carries. It was a blowout. I would expect Daniels to be back to 15 to 20 touches there at 13.5. He had a 71-yard touchdown last week. Just an insanely good play. I like the Texas A&M stack on that one. Jabray Barber, my guy, he's there at 3.4. You also have Noah Thomas below 4K. Ryan Williams, show favorite from Bama, is only priced at 6.5 against Oklahoma. Like, what? Our man that took us to the promised land last week, Bryson Washington, with his 4 touchdown performance, he's priced up to 7.5, but I'm still pretty much going to be all in on him, not fading him anytime soon. You have Corey Kiner at 5K for Cincinnati. That's a really cheap price. Houston quarterback Zion Chris is only 5.2 with rushing upside against Baylor. Love that play. Also in the Washington State receiver room, you may not have noticed because they haven't been on any main slates lately. But Chris Hudson and Josh Meredith have kind of fallen out of relevance a bit. Kyle Williams still doing his thing, but you have over the last 4 to 5 weeks, Carlos Hernandez, priced at 3.7, has been tearing it up. 4 straight games with at least 4 catches. He's scored a minimum of 8 fantasy points in all, 3 of which have hit at least 15. another guy sub 4K to be able to fit Ashton Genty, and you're getting quality pieces, Genty and 1 to 2 other like 6 to 7K guys with all this various value. But Jake will have a article for that. I'm all over the Texas A&M stack. A core for me in that one would be Marcel Reed, Ashton Genty, and Ryan Williams. But ask me in the Discord if you want. You already pretty much have an idea of what I said there. There's plenty of value to be able to make that work. Sorry, Deuce Jones is on the basketball slate, and predictably DK's not tracking his stats live, which we knew, and people are panicking. So just making sure that people know that they'll fix that at some point. They do that all the time. Actually, Aaron predicted that would happen, and it wasn't him that asked, but I do have people in my DMs saying, "Did you just give me a core play that is not playing?" No, he's playing. All right, for slate, what are you looking at as far as lineup construction? 2 quarterbacks, 4 wide receivers, or 4 running backs? So for that one, let me get up the right tab here. Jeez. Too many windows. So for that one, I'm actually looking at either 4 running backs or 2 quarterbacks, not 4 receivers. The option for, or the final decision for me on that slate, because I'm very comfortable with where I'm at now, is Chris at the well, he'll go into the quarterback spot if I use him, but it would be him or Corey Kiner. 5-2 for Chris, 5K for Kiner. That's the only decision that I have to make. The rest of my lineup is dialed, locked, signed, sealed, ready to go. But I'll be thinking about that one, Chris versus Kiner. And then obviously that will determine if I'm running a 2 quarterback or 4 running back lineup with Marcel Reed locked in and not coming out. But Texas A&M stack, Ryan Williams, Ashton Genty, and then the big decision, Chris versus Kiner. Kiner gives you that late exposure, getting a lot of work. He's just way too cheap. He's not, he doesn't do anything too like electric, but he's just a workhorse type guy that gets it done. Matchup on the road against Kansas State could be hit or miss. Baylor's defense is very forgiving when it comes to allowing fantasy points, and I feel like this is a game that Zion Chris can really break out. He hasn't done so. Kind of came on the scene there. What was it, against TCU when they had that upset win? And he racked up nearly 100 rushing yards. He's kind of been hit or miss because he gets sacked a lot, but he did have a nice game against Kansas State, and he did rush for another 55 yards against Arizona last week, despite only scoring 3 points. So right now I'm probably leaning towards Chris, but that is the final decision for me. So probably 2 quarterbacks, to be honest. All right, Josh Kelly and August Dave or Robichaux, Daniel Jackson. Turbo Richard has been confirmed out for Boston College, so there's that. I would go Kelly and August Dave. Kelly's just a really good play for Texas Tech, very safe. He's going to get volume. He's also going to be very popular. Jackson, more of probably like a large field tournament play. I don't feel as safe about him. Penn State's just like they're muddying games up, and they're not facing Purdue. The games are physical and not as fantasy friendly. And I just don't know that Jackson pops off there, but he's definitely a good alt team type of build. All right, we're about 20, just under 20 minutes away. Get your last and final questions out here. Just a content schedule for the next week. Monday night, CBB version of the show, 9 p.m. PST, breaking down any big Tuesday slate stuff. And then with Thanksgiving, we'll be going live on Wednesday night instead of Thanksgiving. in the olden days when I was able to pull all-nighters, I would do the show on Thanksgiving. I've done it lots of times, but not this year. I didn't think we did it last year either. But so we'll be up Monday or Wednesday night for the breakdown of the Saturday slate. And if there's the slate games of Friday, we'll talk about those too, and we'll try to get through as many as we can. And then back, of course, Saturday morning with the live before lock show. Just a couple more of these, and then when we transition out of college football and into bowl season and just done in general and only college basketball, the show schedule will switch up a little bit, be Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. No more Saturday mornings after that. Yep. You got it. Yeah. Let's see here. A few more questions. Just have to open up my Discord again. Favorite game stack is West Virginia UCF. That's the obvious one. A sneakier one, perhaps, would be the Indiana-Ohio State game. Obviously, Ohio State guys are pricey to a degree, but Indiana's offense has been really efficient. Ohio State's been kind of putting along. I don't think a lot of ownership is going to be seen in this game, but I do think it's very appealing. Indiana, outside of Surratt, who's cheap in his own right at 5'2", you've got every single receiver on their team sub 4.5 after that, and then you can get some exposure to Justice Ellison, and then Jeremiah Smith at 7'1", Egbuka at 6'9". These are really cheap prices for those guys, and just nobody's going to use them. So if you're rolling multiple lineups, a mini stack of the Ohio State Indiana game to me makes a lot of sense, just because those guys are good, both offenses, and I think that we're going to be in for a treat. That's one that I definitely want to watch. Any late cheap locks that didn't make your article due to inactives? Pretty much the same group. Nothing's really changed there for me. Okay, sorry, just listening to kids' mom reprimand them in the other room. I think that'll do it, guys. We're about 15 minutes out from lock. I appreciate everyone who continues to support the show. We are just rolling right along. Projections are really dialing in, plus our own thoughts, research, all that stuff, like the blend of the two. I'm very happy with it. All week in our Discord, green screens, window trips, longtime member Mighty Hams binked the jam twice. Belky, I think, won the $5 single entry the other night. Like, just really good things happening. And we've been nails in the last 2 Saturdays of college football. So let's keep it going. Love this community. Appreciate you guys always showing me love as well. On your way out the door, please make sure you interact with this show, whether it's on YouTube or on Twitter. All of that stuff helps us a great deal. Let's get going. 15 minutes to lock. Let's find ourselves a winner this week. Once again, keep it going and into the playoff where things are going to get really, really fun. Window trips and green screens. Let's get them. Thanks, guys. Take care.